Sun hung heavy over the small suburban park when a terrified little girl sprinted across the grass. Her face streaked with tears, her voice breaking as she screamed, "Mama! They're beating me!" In that instant, time seemed to freeze. Her mother, an ordinary black woman who'd come to watch her daughter play, rose from the bench, heart pounding. But what she saw next shattered her sense of safety forever. This wasn't just about a child being hurt. It was about what her skin color meant in that moment. What would you do if it were your child? Before that terrifying day, Maya's life revolved around love, faith, and her daughter, Lily. Every Saturday, they visited the same park, a quiet stretch of green surrounded by tall oaks, laughter and the smell of fresh-cut grass. It was their place of peace, their escape from the noise of the world. Maya, a devoted nurse, had worked long shifts all week and looked forward to these few hours of sunlight with her little girl. Lily, just 8 years old, was full of joy, always running ahead, fearless. Her curls bouncing as she chased butterflies or joined the other kids at the swings. For Maya, watching her daughter play freely among other children felt like hope. She wanted Lily to believe in kindness, to see a world better than the one her mother had grown up in, a world where color didn't define worth. But deep down, Maya knew how fragile that dream was. She had seen too much, heard the whispers, felt the stares, the moments when her skin seemed to speak louder than her words. That afternoon felt no different from any other. Parents gathered in small groups, chatting, sipping coffee, while children laughed across the playground. Yet there was something subtle in the air that Maya couldn't quite name. A quiet tension, a few looks that lingered too long. She brushed it off, convincing herself she was imagining things. Moments later, that fragile peace would shatter. The laughter would turn to silence. And the lesson Maya had tried so hard to shield her daughter from, the cruel truth she had prayed Lily would never experience, was about to unfold before everyone's eyes. No one in that park would forget what happened next, and Maya would never see the world the same way again. The sound of Lily's cry sliced through the air like glass breaking. Maya's head snapped up. Her daughter was no longer at the swings. For a second, confusion blurred her thoughts, then panic surged. Lily was running toward her tiny legs trembling, her voice desperate and broken. "They're beating me, Mama!" Maya's heart froze. She ran forward, grabbing Lily by the shoulders, scanning her face, scratches on her cheek, dirt on her clothes, fear in her eyes. Behind them, 3 older boys stood by the edge of the playground, their laughter sharp, cruel. One of them still held a stick. Another muttered something Maya couldn't quite hear, but the smirk on his face said enough. The other parents just stood there, watching. No one moved. No one said a word. Maya's voice shook. What happened? Lily could barely breathe. Between sobs, she managed, "They said, I don't belong here." Those words cut deeper than any wound. Maya turned toward the boys, her pulse pounding in her ears. She wanted to shout, to demand an explanation, but before she could move, a man stepped in, one of the boys' fathers. His tone was flat, dismissive. "It's just kids playing rough," he said. "Don't make it something it's not." Maya stared at him, disbelief twisting in her chest. "She's bleeding," she said quietly. "That's not playing," he shrugged. "Maybe she started it." That moment, the casual cruelty in his voice, was worse than the attack itself. Around them, parents began murmuring, some turning away, pretending not to see. A mother pulled her son closer, whispering something that made him frown. The invisible line was drawn right there in the dirt. Maya's body trembled, not with fear, but with fury. She gathered Lily in her arms and started to leave, but the laughter followed her. That sound, the echo of arrogance, seared into her memory. She knew this wasn't just about 3 boys. It was about every quiet moment when people chose silence over justice. When she reached her car, she saw something new. Red paint sprayed across the back window. One word, go. Her breath caught. She looked around, but no one seemed to notice or care. That night, after cleaning Lily's wounds and holding her until she fell asleep, Maya sat alone by the window. Every instinct told her to stay quiet, to move on, to protect her child from more pain. But another voice, stronger, fiercer, rose inside her. The next morning, she made a decision. She went back to that park, not to fight, but to be seen. She stood near the same bench, phone in hand, recording as she spoke. Her voice was steady. Yesterday, my daughter was attacked for the color of her skin, and not one adult stepped in. This is what silence looks like. The video spread faster than she could have imagined. Within hours, it reached thousands. People from all over the country began sharing it, outraged and heartbroken. Reporters called. Community leaders reached out. The same park that once echoed with laughter was now filled with questions and cameras. But as Maya would soon discover, not everyone wanted her story told. Some accused her of exaggerating, others called her divisive. Still, she refused to back down. Because for the first time, the world was watching, and this time, silence wouldn't win. The following week, Maya stood before the town's community board, a room filled with polished tables, folded arms, and indifferent faces. The same people who had once smiled at her in the park now looked at her as if she were the problem. Her hands trembled slightly as she held a picture of Lily, the tiny scratches on her daughter's face still visible. She spoke with calm determination. My daughter was attacked because of the color of her skin, and everyone here saw it happen. A heavy silence filled the room. One board member cleared his throat, offering a rehearsed smile. Mrs. Carter, I understand you're upset, but children fight. We can't assume intent. Maya's voice cracked, but her words were sharp. Intent? She was told she doesn't belong. And your silence told those boys they were right. A murmur spread across the room. Some parents avoided eye contact. Others whispered defensively. One even stood up accusing Maya of trying to start trouble. But Maya didn't flinch. Her fear had burned away days ago. Then, just as she thought she was being dismissed again, something unexpected happened. A woman at the back, a teacher, stood up. I saw it, she said softly. She's telling the truth. The room shifted. The truth, once buried under politeness and denial, was finally exposed. Maya's heart pounded. For a moment, she saw change spark in the silence, a small crack in the wall of ignorance that had stood for so long. Cameras from local news stations caught every word, every tear, every breath she took. But later that night, as she returned home, she found a note taped to her door. You should have stayed quiet. Her hand shook as she read it. The danger was real now. This wasn't just about her daughter's pain. It was about the hate that thrived in the shadows of her community. And yet, even as fear gripped her chest, she knew there was no turning back. Because when they tried to silence one mother's truth, they awakened something much stronger. A movement was about to begin. In the days that followed, Maya's story became more than just a viral headline. It became a mirror for an entire community. Strangers began reaching out, some apologizing for their silence, others sharing their own stories of pain, bias, and the quiet racism that hides behind smiles and excuses. What began as a single mother's cry for justice slowly transformed into something greater, a reckoning. The town held its first-ever community meeting on racial awareness. Schools introduced programs to teach empathy and inclusion. The boys who had attacked Lily were required to face what they'd done, to hear the pain their actions had caused. For the first time, the conversation wasn't being buried. It was being heard, raw and uncomfortable. Maya didn't want revenge. She wanted change. And though she carried fear in her heart every time she stepped outside, she also carried strength, the kind that grows only from standing up when every instinct tells you to sit down. Her courage became contagious. Other parents began speaking out. Teachers started listening differently. The silence that had once protected hate was finally breaking. As for Lily, the bruises healed, but something inside her changed. She started asking harder questions about fairness, about kindness, about why people hate what they don't understand. Maya didn't always have the answers, but she promised her daughter one thing. We'll never stop speaking the truth. Months later, when Maya walked through that same park again, she noticed something small but powerful. A new sign stood near the playground. It read, "All are welcome. Hate has no home here." And for the first time, she smiled, not because everything was fixed, but because something had finally begun. Racism doesn't always scream. Sometimes it whispers. Sometimes it hides in silence, waiting for good people to look away. But silence is where injustice grows strongest. So the question remains, when it's your turn to speak up, will you?